The Percy Jackson Disney Plus show just had a panel at New York Comic Con, and the amount of new stuff we got is massive. I'm talking about first time appearances of characters, exclusive clips of the show, new images of the set, and brand new never before seen Percy Jackson lore. So make sure you stick around until the end to see all of this. To begin, the panel started off with some key members of the crew for the show. This included the executive producers, showrunners, directors, costume designers, and the VFX supervisors. They started off by showing an exclusive scene to the in-person audience. They show a total of 3 exclusive scenes throughout the entire panel. These scenes include the first 7 minutes of the show, the Minotaur scene, and the Capture the Flag scene. I of course can't show them here as they are copyrighted, but I will describe what these scenes contained later in the video. Then the showrunners begin by emphasizing how they felt the responsibility of delivering a faithful product to the fans. Next, they show some more pictures of the Camp Half-Blood set. This includes a look at the Hermes cabin and the archery range. While showing these images, the set designer also confirmed the big house and the dining hall. Next, the costume designer also mentioned how they tested 20 different shades of orange to get the color just right. I feel like this really shows how dedicated they are to this show. The VFX supervisor then noted how they really wanted to use volume screens instead of normal blue screens. For those that are not familiar with what volume screens are, they are the same tech that is used in The Mandalorian. A cool little side note that they mentioned was how the kids hooked up their Switch to the massive volume screen and just started to play Mario Kart on it. Playing on such a massive screen must have been such a surreal experience. The VFX supervisor also mentioned how they wanted the Minotaur to look scary and mentioned how it will run on all 4s. Next, we get some first time looks at many of the characters in the show. First, they started off with the gods. We have already seen Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, and Ares. But we also got our first look at Hermes, Hephaestus, and Dionysus. And can I just say how perfect of a casting Jason was for Mr. D? Those that have seen Brooklyn Nine-Nine or The Good Place know how well Jason pulls off that eccentric and unpredictable character. We also get some new pictures of Clarice, Mrs. Dodds, Echidna, and Medusa. I think Medusa's face-covered veil costume here amazingly pulls off that unnerving, mysterious vibe. But we also get our first ever look at Luke Castellan. But something else many people didn't expect is the reveal of the actor playing the younger Percy. Yes, this does mean that we're going to get flashbacks to when Percy was younger and prior to the events of the Lightning Thief. The panel ends with a surprise appearance from Rick and Becky Riordan. I mean, it's always nice to see Rick at events. Now let's get into some of the sneak peeks that they got at the panel. Let's start off with the summary of the first 7 minutes of the first episode. The episode of course starts off with Percy narrating the first couple pages of the Lightning Thief, as we have already seen in the teaser. Next, we get a scene of young Percy in 2nd grade, seeing a glimpse of Pegasus landing on the roof, which many think is Blackjack. Then it cuts back to the scene in the Met, as we see in the trailer with Chiron teaching the class. Then we cut again to younger Percy and his mom at the same Perseus statue, where Sally explains why Percy is named after Perseus. She also tells Percy, not everyone who looks like a hero is a hero, and not everyone who looks like a monster is a monster. Then she retells the mythos of Perseus and ends by saying, against all odds, he managed to find a way to a happy ending. Percy then hears his name being called, snapping him back to the current time. Percy accidentally responds to this by saying Mom, which ends up being very embarrassing for him. Nancy Bobofit then mocks Percy about this. Miss Dodds chimes in saying Percy needs to control himself. Chiron ends up breaking the argument between the two and hands Percy Riptide. Then we cut to lunchtime where Nancy throws some food at Percy. Percy naturally stands up in order to push her, but before he can make actual contact, he accidentally uses his powers and Nancy flies back into the fountain. Nancy then screams, saying Percy pushed her, and the scene ends, and that's the end of the clip. I personally think this is a perfect sneak peek, as it really shows how faithful they are being to the source material this time around. A lot of this dialogue is direct quotes from the book. This is a huge improvement from the movies, which completely skipped over this scene altogether. Next, we get the Minotaur scene. It starts off with Percy, Grover, and Sally driving from the cabin to Camp Half-Blood. Percy, only just learning about the Greek world's existence, is asking a lot of questions. Grover then explains who he is, what the mist is, and what Camp Half-Blood is. Before Grover can finish explaining, they see the Minotaur chasing them. The car then starts getting attacked, but before they crash, the scene ends. And that's the Minotaur scene. I personally think they didn't want to spoil the battle scenes and just wanted this scene to showcase how they're going to explain the lore instead. Finally, we have the capture the flag scene. The scene opens with Percy doing the floss, and then a montage of him being bored and doing nothing. It seems like his team didn't really trust him and instead put him in charge of keeping watch. But then all of a sudden, he gets ambushed by Clarice and her crew. Percy mentions how the flag is actually in the other direction and not with him. Clarice mentions how she knows that and glory is fine, but revenge is more fun. Percy mentions how maiming is against the rules, but Clarice rebuttals by saying, basically, she doesn't care. She showcases her electric spear and the two begin to fight. Percy begins to lose, but the scene ends before we see anything further. This of course is a scene where Clarice attempts to get revenge and tries to reclaim some honor. Based on some of the leaks going around on Twitter, the action and battle scenes are going to be crazy. But what do you guys think of all of this news? Let me know down below.